Inside the Classroom takes an in-depth look at one of Team Hardin County Schools' best teachers in action, featuring comments, class instruction, and insight inside the classroom.
I became a teacher because teaching chose me. I originally was wanting to be a speech pathologist, but I was doing children's ministries at my local church. I started that when I was 13 years old, and it just naturally grew on me, grew in me. People remember telling me stories that I would say, one day I'm going to teach your child, and then I ended up teaching their children. Now we're ready for social studies. So what we're going to do, we're going to go back over our I can statements. I'm going to slide that there. We've been working on identifying the 7 major events leading up to the Revolutionary War. What is another name of the Revolutionary War? We talked about this in small group. The American Revolution. I don't know why you second guessed yourself. So it's the American Revolution or the Revolutionary War, which is the same thing. I can explain major facts and events about each event. And then we went into our short answer or race with Roop. I can discuss who was in conflict in the Revolutionary War and provide examples. And then I can define and explain. Today we're going to work on defining and explaining key terms and concepts. And I can describe key events and how people were impacted. I've taught all grades. When I taught in Ohio County, I taught 6th grade for 9 years. So when I came to Hardin County, the oldest grade that I could teach with my certificate was 5th grade. So I have been exposed to many different subjects, many different content areas, and I do love social studies and I love reading, so I like to incorporate reading strategies and reading skills in informational text. So today, we're going to play Sink or Swim, but the way we're going to play Sink or Swim is called Grab the Eraser. Okay, so here are my 4 rules, and then this is how it'll work. Number 1, Miss Roopchan, that's me, will ask a question. 2, the person that grabs the eraser can give the answer for their team. If the answer is correct, then you can sink one person from another team or swim a person on your team. And this is a key thing. Number 4, how many people left standing at the end of our 10-minute time is how many table war points you earn. And I'm giving out table war prizes today. You like that? I remember in kindergarten, there was a teacher, her name was Miss Duncan, and I remembered she would use the Etch Sketch markers, and she would write smiley faces on our paper, and I thought, I want to be a teacher so I can do smelly stickers and smelly markers. So that was my first experience. Also, just being around my cousin who is a teacher. She works at a magnet school, or just retired recently, I should say, from a magnet school in Johnson City, Tennessee. So being around educators on my mom's side of the family, my dad's side of the family, I think it just naturally came and happened there. We're just going to go around. If your number is the smallest, you're going to go by table numbers, and then that way you're not worried about who goes first, second, or third. And then I'm going to set my phone for 10 minutes, and we're just going to work this as fast as we can. So if you're the smallest number, I need one person here, I need one person here, and I need one person here. Let me get my timer started. First word, Daughters of Liberty. Who are they? Sia.
A female group of colonists who protested against Parliament?
Correct. So your table gets a point. Would you like to sink someone? Who would you like to sink? Leilani. You are sunk.
Being effective is such a common word. I would like to say that Ms. Roopchan is actually above being effective. She's always fine-tuning and seeing what she can do differently for the sake of the child, for her team, and for New Highland. She will stay after school. We have a new program. She volunteered initially to stay after school, Ms. Packer. I have some students that they need to work on different skills in the area of writing, social studies, or just financial literacy. And she said, well, can I stay after school with these kids? And she got together with the team, and they all agreed. So effectiveness above effectiveness.
What does monopoly mean? Ooh, Rom.
When one business controls everything.
When one business controls everything. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So when one business controls everything, that is correct. Table 1 gets a point. Would you like to sink or swim?
Sink.
Okay, who would you like to sink? See ya. Don't come for them or they will come for you.
I have Miss Roopchan for writing, science, and social studies. She is effective in all of the subjects because when asking a question, she breaks it down so the students understand what she's trying to ask.
What was the Proclamation of 1763? Luke.
It was a rule where the colonists couldn't go past the Abolition Mountain.
Okay, that is correct. Would you like to sink or swim?
Swim.
Swim who? See ya. Of course.
Ms. Roopchan is very effective because she starts us off with on-demand writing, and that really gets us our mind going in a mindset to work harder.
What is a blockade? Kaylee?
A group of people that go around a barrier and block other colonists from moving.
Let's build on that one. It's not that I'm not going to give them a point. She's given us a good foundation. Are you really going around something? We're going to put this back in the stack. A blockade is where you are, thank you, no point. A blockade is where you create, you prevent a means for people to get past. So when we talk about the blockade, due to what act? It was because of the Boston Tea Party, there was an act. It was called after the Boston. It was an Intolerable Act, be more specific. The Boston Port Act. So what happened with the blockade, the type of blockade that was used, it was to shut down what? To shut down the Boston Harbor. So what did they put in the Boston Harbor? Warships. So the warships were the blockade to prevent people from doing what? Importing and exporting. See, you got it.
Ms. Roopchan, she strives to help 5th grade and to make us know more and to strive our potential.
Where did the Boston Massacre happen?
In Boston, in front of the,
Don't help me.
in front of the,
I'm going to give it to you. It happened in Boston in front of the
Customs House.
Yes, and what were they put in the customs house?
Taxes.
The taxes. Okay, so that's a good job. Table 2. Would you like to sink or swim?
I'd like to re-sink.
Oh! Bye-bye.
Ms. Roopchan is a really effective teacher because she makes sure that everybody in the classroom understands the content before she moves on to another subject.
Who was Crispus Attucks? Jada.
He was one of the 5 men killed in the Boston Massacre.
Okay. Any more information you would like to add?
He was the first African American.
He was the first African American killed. Was he a free?
Yes.
Okay, he was free. He was not a slave. What was his job? Bailani?
He was a sailor.
He was a sailor. Okay, good job. That's a point. Would you like to sink? And you cannot swim, Sia. She's been sunk twice.
Okay. I want to sink Kaden.
Oh, bye-bye. So here's the change to my rule. If you've been sunk twice, you're out. Until you get 5 points. In our social studies class right now, we're currently talking about the tensions leading up to the American Revolutionary War, the Revolutionary War, and we're getting ready to actually go into the war. So today, a little bit of the clip that you saw was the students reviewing key information, key terms, key events, key people that led to the Revolutionary War. So the game that we played was the eraser game, sink or swim. So I took a variation of the game, sink or swim. Sink or swim, when the team or the student gets the question right, they can choose an opposing team to sink so that they can give their team the advantage. And if they want to save their teammate, they can help them to swim. So what I did a variation because we can extend the game for a long length of time, that after a person had been sunk twice, that the team had to build up 5 points before they could save that person. But the whole concept of the game is just to provide a fun way to review the information, to go over the key terms, to think about why the Revolutionary War happened, what were the things that were going on at that time, how does it impact the people then, so then we can build a bridge to how does it impact and affect us today. What is the Quartering Act, Rom?
Where British soldiers went and invaded the colonists' house, asking them to provide food and shelter and transportation.
Okay, invade is very harsh. It wasn't invade.
The British soldiers basically moved in and the colonists had to take care of them.
Yes. Okay. The reason that we're clarifying this, oops, table 2, sorry. No, thank you. Okay, it wasn't an invasion. You can have a seat. It wasn't an invasion. It was a law that required colonists to take care of the soldiers. Why did the soldiers need to be taken care of?
So that way they can protect the city from the place that they were. That way they can protect from other people.
Yeah, they were protecting the colonists because what had happened prior to the Quartering Act? The French and the Indian War. So the French and the Native Americans or indigenous people, they were pretty upset that they lost the war, right? And the colonists were still doing what? They were still taking land. They were ignoring what? They were ignoring the proclamation of 1763, so they were continuing to do that move west. And that's why the soldiers needed to be there. But they didn't have money. They didn't have the means to supply for themselves because they still have families back home. Next question. Yes, sink or swim? You want to stick who? Oh, that's your second time. What? Your team's got to get 5 points. Yes. No, you said invade. And invade, I said, was a very harsh word because it wasn't that they were invading. They were staying, and that was a law. It was required.
She probably didn't tell you all this, but Miss Roopchan can sing. She has a gorgeous, beautiful voice, and it really just circulates through the room and draws the child in. And so she could be talking about the Declaration of Independence, and she'll belt out a song, and the students don't know, is she going to ask me to join in? You know, where did this song come from? And so she has a way of singing through the Declaration of Independence, First Amendment, any of those things regarding social studies.
What were the Intolerable Acts also known as? We're going to be?
I do not know the other name.
You've got 30 seconds. Okay.
They would hang people on the Liberty Tree, and they would be like rude people, the colonists, I think. They would like throw tar and feathers on them.
No.
I forgot.
Okay. This is not for a point. You can have a seat. Anyone know what the Intolerable Acts are also known as? Kaylee. The Coercive Acts. Okay, what Naomi was talking about wasn't what the Intolerable Acts had people do. This is how people were acting out because of the Intolerable Acts. People were tarring and feathering tax collectors. People were pouring tea down their throats. We saw in the pictures there was a noose in the back. So those are some ways that the colonists were acting out, but we also have to remember that the British soldiers were acting out as well, fighting fire with fire. I use a different variety of different strategies, so it just depends. If my students need extra help where they need to listen to what's being read, I will read everything to them. If they need to talk things out, I will talk things out. Providing written feedback as well as verbal feedback is key. Providing them visual connections to what we're learning. I will do video clips. I will play music. I will try to reach all of the multiple intelligences in any way possible to help them to be able to connect to the concept. Because we find that social studies, my students are just learning that they're historians. They're actually making history, and what they had for breakfast is history, and what they did yesterday is history, and it blows their mind. So taking them from that abstract to the concrete, that they are making history and they are history in the making, I need to do anything that I can to help them make that connection. What was the cause of the French and Indian War?
Some activities that Ms. Roopchan provides for us to engage in our learning is fun activities but still help us learn, such as swim or sink, basketball, and sometimes we give presentations where we go up in front of the class and we teach the students, not the teacher, about different topics of what we're reading.
What was the cause of the French and Indian War? Mariah?
Britain had a huge debt.
No.
It was because the Britain and the French and Indians were both fighting over the Ohio River Valley.
Okay, so what did Britain want from the Ohio River Valley?
Soil for planting crops.
Okay, and what did France want and the Native Americans want? For their trade. So that was where it is. Okay, so Kaylee, table 1, who would you like to sink? Mariah. Okay, so here we have left. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Table 2, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so far table 3 is in the lead. So let's give them snaps. Let's have good sportsmanship. Let's give each other snaps.
Ms. Roopchan is generous, competitive, loving, and hilarious.
So here's what we're going to do for centers, because I only have one rotation to go to. I'm coming back to table 1, race with Roop. You're supposed to have your 2 questions ready so I can score them and give you feedback. I already looked at some of them. Table 2, chapter 10 graphic organizer, you need to make sure that you have all of it answered. If there's anyone that you have a question about, circle it. So when we come back as a whole group, I can go over it with you. Table 3, you need to make sure your chapter 10 doodle notes are finished. If you have any questions, put a star by it and I will answer. If you finish early, first thing I want you to do is, what does the quote mean? I'm going to display it on the screen, and I want you to write it down, what you think the quote means, in your composition notebook. And the second thing I want you to do is silently read chapter 11 in History Alive. So again, early finishers, what does the quote mean? Silently read chapter 11.
Ms. Roopchan is such a good teacher because every time I don't understand something, she will go over it with me over and over again, no matter how many times I need to, and she tells me how to do it.
So here it says, this proves that the colonists thought being taxed was unfair, but you didn't give us an example of one of the taxes that they considered it to be. So it's kind of like reading it and then you have a gap in between, okay? So that would be your race, that would be the answer, and you're giving your answer, but you're not citing your evidence. and that's what adds the big bulk to it. Do you understand? Okay, so add to that. We do a race for the district, which is restating, answering, citing, and explaining our evidence. So the two key concept questions that I had the students write, one question was, what were the groups that were in conflict leading up to the Revolutionary War, and then give a reason why it led to that. Then the second question follows up with, what does no taxation without representation mean to the colonists? So using race, I walk the students through who are the groups, because it's a two-part question, and then what were the things going on that connected them together. With our new standards, it is very, I want to say, more complex, more in depth. It's providing a deeper level of rigor that our students may not always be able to go from. So we've been talking about a stoplight strategy, that these are questions that are red questions that you have to take the text, but you have to go deeper. So with the first question, it was very black and white, the part of that. Who were the two groups involved? But then seeing the connection of what is the main theme that threads and connects the Quartering Act, the Proclamation of 1763, the Stamp Act. What is the overarching theme? Which is taxes, and taxes being put on the colonists that they didn't feel like they needed to pay. So taking that and then going through and saying, okay, now provide proof. Let's get that singular thought. So with our writing concept on-demand writing, we've been talking about one reason, one thought. So let's go on and embed that in our race. What's the one reason? What's the one thought? Because we only have 9 lines to write it. So let's get very to the point. Let's get very focused. Let's streamline this. The second question expands on it, and it talks about, okay, what does no taxation without representation mean? And then if you were a colonist, how would that impact your life? How would that influence you? Why did the colonists act the way that they did? Okay, I like how you started this, but here I would like to see an example. Like you said, the reason, I'm going to put there one example. The reason for the conflict was that in all of the acts, and I like how you use that overarching to show that there was more than one act, there was a tax on the colonists, okay? That would be a great time to put, for example, one of the acts was. And then you could pick, because you talked about the Stamp Act and the Tea Act. So when we had the discussion, so the colonists said that it was unfair that they had so much money in debt. So show me that. What was it that put them in debt? Then this is how the conflict grew. This is how the conflict the groups had led to with the groups had led to the war. So you need to go back and you need to add there.
She shows me that she cares for me by saying, you can do this. You can't do it yet, but you'll be able to do it later. And she tells me that if I do my best, then every single paper I do is the best one.
Do you see how this went into more detail than this one? Okay. Did you make corrections with this? Okay. I want you to finish that one up.
She's become a key part of the staff because she doesn't think she's the best. She's always talking about what she can do differently. Not only her, but her team. So when she was nominated, she was like, me? I'm nominated? And Miss Hohenstein, which is phenomenal all in herself. So she does not think she's the best. So this is just my opinion. You know, she's wonderful because she is amongst numerous other best teachers here at New Highland. We're blessed and honored that she's just one of the many. We have a plethora of teachers that we have. And Miss Roopchan, she is just a fulcrum that's moving all those gears together.
So an example of Rom's to get him up to that 4 is that he pulled a piece of information from his text. So what could you say that shows that it's something that you've learned in class or that you've read in the text? The phrase, no taxation without representation, meant to the colonists that if the colonists cannot vote on the new law about taxes, then the Parliament or British government has no right to tax them. How do you know that? That would be my question. So tell me, how do you know it? I didn't know what the ExCEL Award really entailed. So to be nominated, I was like, oh, okay. I didn't really think that I would win. I did not know, and I'm still learning the concept of it. But overall, it's a very humbling experience. I've been teaching for 18 years. I can think of various students that I have seen them go through various different life experiences, different life situations. I have seen them grow from being a child to being a teenager to graduating to celebrating their successes, to their marriages, to their having babies. And that's the same thing that I want to have here in Hardin County and having those experiences. So to be acknowledged for what I'm doing in my classroom, when even sometimes for any teacher it can be hard because we have our classroom, we deal with our students, we take the load of their situations and their circumstances, but sometimes we tend to forget that life hits us when we leave here, and that sometimes it impacts our life, and everyone can say that they've had life happen. And to be able to acknowledge that despite it all, working through it, you're seeing that I'm here for the children and that I'm doing everything that I possibly can for them to be successful, not just in the content, but in life in general. So it was very humbling to be nominated. It was very humbling to be seen doing what I love to do in the classroom, and that people could feel the enthusiasm and the fire that I have in the classroom, and that my students are trying and that they're working hard. So I'm very grateful and thankful. So here, I would say, give me an example. Because you say, means the colonists that were being forced to pay taxes when they had no say. Well, what was the tax? Because you go to therefore, the thought that it was unfair. What was unfair? Goes back to an example of a tax. My greatest joys, my faith, my family, and my friends. This is better than this from yesterday, but we're gonna go even better because I know it's in there in you. Just like you have that natural writing ability for on-demand writing, you can have the natural ability for this. It's just taking the bigger time of writing 5 paragraphs and just putting it in 9 lines and saying what's the most important part.
Ms. Roopchan is someone I will remember as I get older because she may be one of the only teachers that I know who can share moments of her life and connect it to the topic of what we're reading or writing about.
So, is there anywhere that you can maybe put some of this information in quotation marks because you got it from the text, or say in the text it says? And then that way that helps to prove you're citing your evidence. Okay.
She's really one of the teachers that strive us to do our very best and achieve what we want in life.
I don't want you to just list the examples. If you're going to choose one, why was the Stamp Act unfair? Then that's what you should say. For example, one of the acts was a Stamp Act that required or asked for a blue stamp on the paper. And then that can go into, this tells me that the colonists would begin to protest. Well, if you're going to say that they would protest about it being unfair, what was the specific thing that they did in protest of the Stamp Act?
And she really helps me to understand everything that we have to do.
So you have the ability to put it in there. It's just like our writing I can statement, getting that one thought, focusing on that one thought and committing to the end with that one thought. Teachers are the foundation of everything. Even as a parent, which I'm not a parent, that's where the initial teaching starts, where you foster love and you foster boundaries and you foster the ability to learn and to grow. So as a teacher, I feel like I contribute and work along with the parents to foster a love for reading, foster a love for learning, to foster a love for exploring. And I couldn't think of anything better to do than to be a teacher.